All right, wanderers, intrepid heroes, travelers far and wide. We are three men in a basement. My name is Colin McLeod.
Mark Culp here.
Timothy Magic here. Welcome to Earthrealm.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm great, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, Colin, do tell me, how are you?
I'm splendid. So this is the kind of playful banter that you can come to enjoy here with three men in a basement. We're delightful, and I hope you enjoy us as much as we enjoy ourselves, because it's sickening how much we enjoy ourselves. It really is.
I'm sick with self-love.
He is.
I think very highly of ourselves.
Okay. Right on. So, as I've said, we're three men in a basement. We like to review movies, and a little bit of an elevator version about the podcast. We like to take films that people maybe these films have sort of flown under the radar. They're the kind of films that border on whether or not you've heard of them and seen them. And we like to review them and let you know whether or not, from our perspective, you should see them too. We are three regular schmucks who are really big fans of the movie industry and have a fair bit of experience in the movie industry, in the film industry.
I've seen a movie.
You've seen a movie or two.
I've seen
Tim?
2 movies.
Okay, so we're probably going to remove Tim from the podcast.
It was Star Wars and Star Trek.
He's seen just a few
for
too many
Spock.
films. No, he knows more than the rest of us.
This is actually my second movie. I saw Equilibrium recently.
You did.
Yeah.
Maybe you could catch that on the last podcast.
Episode 1.
Episode 1.
Not to...
In Search of Spock.
If we keep this trend going, it's going to be Mark hasn't seen this movie. Colin and Tim are popping that cherry.
That's true.
Mark gets his cherry popped. Episode 2.
Episode 2.
Almost
This
heroes.
is, did we mention this is a family-friendly podcast? No, it's not. Don't let your kids listen to this.
No, I hope not.
All right, so with that being said, Tim, you brought up, this is a film that Mark has never seen before. This movie is Almost Heroes. So for the listeners out there in TV land or radio land, I'm going to give you the sort of IMDb version of this movie. As I've said, this is Almost Heroes. Came out in 1998. Director Christopher Guest. I guess he didn't own the house the party was at. Bad joke, Colin. Shame on you. Right, so this movie stars Christopher Farley, Matthew Perry. Yeah, why did I go Christopher on that?
I appreciate that
He's been gone so long and I miss him. Like,
Christopher, that's his...
Christopher Farley.
That's what his mother calls him.
Jacket says, yeah.
Chris Farley, for those in the know, all you people out there who know Chris Farley really well.
His friends called him Cree.
Yeah.
My friends call me Christopher.
Matt Perry, I'm going to go Matt on that because, we're friends. Fuck, I'm so bad with these jokes tonight.
No, keep them coming.
A handful of other people Eugene Levy makes a pretty fucking awesome appearance. Yeah, a couple other people. Again, I feel like I always say this. I've said this for 2 podcasts. People you'd know by face, but maybe not by name. This movie is a comedy. It's sort of like an alternative history comedy. So IMDb has it as adventure comedy western. And yeah, I think that sort of characterizes it.
Fit the criterias, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Before we get into spoiler territory, I just wanted to sort of feel everybody out and see what were your opinions about this movie and would you recommend it?
All right, start with me. As one half of the Brothers Magic, Matt and I grew up with David Spade and Chris
You're going to have to
Farley
explain
movies.
that, sorry.
Nah. I grew up with Almost Heroes. It was in our canon. It was there with Black Sheep and Tommy Boy and Beverly Hills Ninjas. All the Chris Farley movies were in our canon, so absolutely go back and watch this if you're not a 90s baby, if you're not an 80s baby. If you're a 2000s baby, go back and watch this. It's going to be a fun time, I think. So I automatically recommend it. But that's just my bias.
Right on. Mark, you've never seen this movie before.
No, I haven't. Now, I will admit that I have been flipping through channels and have crossed a scene or two.
Sure.
But no, this is the first time I've ever sat through and watched the whole thing to completion. I had a good time. Am I going to say that this is the movie that is going to change your life? No. Is it going to change your evening? Maybe. I had a good time. And I would say I had a good time, no alcohol required.
But the alcohol helped.
It certainly did. It lubricated the whole experience. Full disclosure, I drank. But I didn't end the evening feeling like I had to. It was more of an option, you know? I don't like to be put in a box.
I feel like that's actually like a really legitimate review. It's like, I didn't need alcohol to enjoy this.
I don't think anybody got plastered tonight. No.
Drywalled, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this a nuanced... It's pretty good.
Yeah.
.com.
TM.
Build it on your Wix page.
So, yeah, this movie... Okay, for our listeners out there, let me, preface this section of the podcast where we, give our opinions about whether or not you should see this movie with the information that all of these movies are coming out of my collection, so... The majority of them I'm going to have, pretty strong opinions about, and, a lot of them you should probably see. That being said...
No bias.
No bias. So, yeah, you got a little selection bias from this particular reviewer, but I've got two people keeping me in check and telling me when I'm being maybe not so accurate with how other people might perceive this movie. But I definitely... I fucking love this movie. It's so funny. I think the best part about this movie, and this is kind of the whole reason behind this podcast, is it's the kind of movie that, everybody loves Chris Farley, and he's so funny, and Matt Perry's really great, and I just feel like not a lot of people know of this movie. And they may know of it, and they've just never seen it, or they maybe haven't seen it in a while. If you're not watching this movie right now, probably just, press pause and go and watch this movie. It's really funny.
Well, don't pause the podcast. Finish the podcast, because we need the
spoilers
views.
are up ahead.
That's true.
Fuck it.
fucking pause it and go and watch that movie. No, it is really funny. It's clever, and it's not one of sort of the ones that Farley is it's not going to be the first thing that tumbles out of somebody's mouth when they're talking about Farley's greatest works. But he's just so damn funny that anything he touched was great. And Matt Perry was a beautiful compliment to him, sort of in the vein of David Spade in Tommy Boy and Black Sheep. I definitely I'm vibing what you were saying, Tim, that it's reminiscent of that, but just stuck in sort of a historical context, and with Matt Perry instead of David Spade. So
and Matt Perry, I think, lends to that more prim, proper colonial times than David Spade ever could.
He definitely does.
So
yeah,
I think the casting director spot on with what they were shooting for.
Yeah,
for this particular project.
All right, so at this point, as I've said, spoilers up ahead. If you don't want spoilers coming your way, maybe press pause, go watch the movie, and then come back and press play at this particular moment.
Well, it's from '98 though, so you're venture
True.
at your own at your own discretion.
What Tim's trying to say here is if you are offended by any spoilers that you hear, just basically get over it.
Get over it. Get over it. You
move on.
millennials.
Move on with your life. What are you doing? Watching The Bachelor? I don't know.
Well, apparently they're listening to this podcast, which I can't say is much better than The Bachelor.
No, it is. I encourage it. I feel like Matthew Perry. Okay, let me go back a minute. You said David Spade. Matthew Perry is subbing in for David Spade in a way. Those weren't your words. I feel Matthew. Can I call you Matthew? he carries the movie, in my opinion. I love Chris Farley. Chris Farley is the glue for me in this movie, but Matt Perry is... I don't know, I was going to use...
He's the wood.
He's the straight man.
He's the crackle
the wood
to his pop.
Man.
He's the straight man to Chris Farley's fool.
Matthew Perry is the structure of this movie for me. You know, I like I like that foot. But his delivery of just fucking every one of his lines, his like just indignation, his, you know, pompous, like that for me was the movie. And Chris Farley was just the I mean, he made it enjoyable. He made... I don't know if you're appreciating the nuance that I'm dropping.
No, I really
here.
do. Like, I didn't think about it. However, I think sort of like what you're driving at is like, David Spade in a lot of Chris Farley, David Spade films was sort of the yardstick by which Chris Farley's shenanigans was held. And I think in this film, like, Matt Perry delivered some goofy shit so well that, like, it was actually Farley in, like, a lot of the film that was, like, the kind of reasonable one by which Matt Perry's, like, absurd shit was really being, like, measured against. And it really, like, it resonated in a really solid way because, I mean, while I would say they went back and forth on that particular point, It definitely, I think, Mark, you're saying it tipped slightly in favor of Perry in this?
Yeah, that is definitely what I'm saying. I took extensive notes for this movie, and one of the big things that came out to me, and I'm going to, you know what, guys, I'm going to break the fourth wall here. I'm going to read you my note. Special treat.
My note.
This is what I wrote. Notes. I'm sorry. I'm trying to carry the illusion that I took a lot of notes for this movie. Spoiler alert, didn't. What I'm trying to say... Matthew Perry's ultimate ham performance. Okay, that's all I wrote, guys. But that is what this movie is. Every scene that he's in, he's hamming it up. He's just... It's just oozing with nonsense, and I love it.
It took me a while to realize, after multiple viewings over the years, Matthew Perry and Chris Farley is the modern-day Abbott and Costello situation. The goof and the straight man getting across to the Pacific. That's the premise of this movie. Abbott and Costello would do the same thing in their timeline, if they could. It's just a bigger, grander scale.
Okay, press and pause.
It paused.
It didn't pause.
It did not pause.
All right, we're recording still. Okay, we're probably gonna have to edit this.
Guys, we paused it for a second so that we could discuss the ramifications of whether or not we read the IMDb synopsis.
Why are you breaking the fourth wall, man?
I'm not trying to break the fourth wall. The wharf wall
Worth
broke me.
Oh no, Worth.
What we're trying to suss out here is whether or not we should give the IMDb synopsis pre-review, post-review. We want to make sure we do it. Post Malone.
I love Post Malone.
Kind of looks like Pavarotti if you find the right picture of both of them. It doesn't matter. But, you know what, guys? I'm going to go ahead, and I hope that my, trio de dangers here don't have an issue with this, but I'm going to go ahead and give you the synopsis, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Okay. Is everyone ready? Here we go. This is a quote from IMDb now. A road comedy about two guys whose mission is to beat Lois and Clark.
Lois and Clark?
Lewis? Is it pronounced Lois or
No,
Lewis?
because it's like the New Adventures of Superman?
I feel like we're not like filling our listeners with like a vote of confidence on our fucking
but I feel
our knowledge on this stuff.
Lois and
that
Clark.
the tenor
New
of this
Adventures of
conversation...
Superman. Chris Farley and Matthew Perry are going to take on Dean Cain. Fucking watch your back, Superman.
I'm going to argue that the
Sorry, I
tenor
swore.
of this conversation fits the movie perfectly. And
I would agree.
I'm all in it.
Okay, so kind of building on what you said, Mark. This movie, so basically what we're dealing with, we're going to give our fucking 2 cents on how this works. You've got Matt Perry and Chris Farley, who are basically like an idea man played by Matt Perry, somebody who's like really refined and like is all just deep in the trappings of like quote modern society circa like the 1700s. Farley is like a trapper / outdoorsman, and they like band together with this like ragtag bunch of like nothings to basically strike out west and try and get to the Pacific before Lewis and Clark do. And basically each member of their crew is just fucking like funnier than the next. And it's like, yeah, Matt Perry is constantly obsessed with this very like prim and proper version of things. Basically, he's lived in his entire life in books and in schools.
He's on a mission from Thomas Jefferson.
True. And Chris Farley is basically a drunk tracker. And then they have Eugene Levy, who plays a Frenchman who like
a French trapper
who claims that he knows a whole bunch of languages that he doesn't. Hundreds of languages. Who he also owns this like incredibly gorgeous like native woman who Matt Perry immediately falls in love with. There's a guy
audience immediately falls in love with.
She is gorgeous. Yeah.
Let's be fair here. She's the only female in the entire movie, really, outside of that gruff woman who just barks at Chris Farley in the first.
There were the Hay women. The Hay women were there.
The Hay women.
Yeah. All right, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, there is a scene with a brothel.
Oh.
Entirely composed of hay women.
They're literally bags of hay with faces drawn on them. But let's move on.
Okay, there were some pretty ones.
Yeah. Let's be real.
They were more symmetrical than the others.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's the way I evaluated them. What? There's Bidwell, who always gets the worst of everything. It's amazing. Like, he gets a fucking ear bitten off.
Guy's a lovable oaf that just keeps getting hit by a car. Not literally, but, basically.
Yeah, like the 1700s version of, like, getting hit by a car.
Ear bitten off, leg bitten off. No, he didn't fall down the mountain at the end.
No, he got shot twice, though.
Yeah, shot twice, though, yeah.
He might have fallen off a mountain. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who else we got? We've got, there's an old guy who just wants to see the Pacific. Jackson. He's not any help.
Mm-hmm. I was impressed with how he both simultaneously made me believe that he had a huge nose, but also no nose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if that's translating.
It's like as you get older, like, your chin and your forehead get closer together, but, like, the other stuff just slowly disappears in between.
Yeah, it made no sense.
That's kind of what you're getting at.
I liked it.
Right, okay, so you're following us. This is sort of the general idea of the movie. And as you can imagine, hilarity ensues with all of these cast of characters trying to get to the Pacific before Lois and Clark. Lewis and Clark. Fuck you.
Again, Mark. The new Adventures of Superman.
You really did. You really did. The two of you.
What the hell?
With your
guys.
Oh, the two of you.
I haven't said.
It's Lancel and Clark.
It's Lancelot and King Arthur.
What?
Right. Okay. So back on track. Right. This is good. Anything else on our overview of the movie? How are people feeling about the movie?
I feel like I have effectively communicated my...
How you feel?
My feelings. Tim?
All in all, yes, growing up with this movie, it has a weird sort of nostalgia for me. So again, I will have some bias. But again, check it out. It's a great, under-the-radar Chris Farley, Matthew Perry picture.
I agree with you, Tim. I think that's a good way of putting it. All right, so acting. Mark, you already talked about your affinity for Matt Perry in this film.
Oh, yeah. The way he delivered just, righteous frickin', indignation. I loved. No, I love Matthew Perry in this movie. I felt Chris Farley did a fantastic job playing convincing Chris Farley. And This is not the kind of movie, and I'm speaking opinion here. This is not the kind of movie that you sit down and you evaluate one's performance. With this particular movie, again, in my opinion, it's who has the most fun with it. And that's really for me at least, the marker by which I'm going to judge these people for this movie. And Matthew Perry had fun with it. Chris Farley had his usual fun with it. Everybody else was their believable side character nonsense. And it all fit for me.
So I'm going to agree with you that, like, I think Matt Perry really, like, stepped it up in this movie. And he cracked me up, like, severely. Chris Farley, I got to agree with you. Like, Chris Farley is always funny, and he did Chris Farley in this movie. And, like, if that's what you like, which it's exactly what I like, you're gonna fucking love his performance in this movie. The one I will go after on this, in a good way, is Eugene Levy's character as Guy Fontenot, the Frenchman. Oh my god, he kills me. He's got this, like, really, like, just aggressively stupid French accent, and he goes into these, like, tirades and this, like, really, like, what do I want to say, kind of in your face performance, and it's just okay, it's reminiscent of Father of the Bride Part 2, Eugene Levy's character in that, where he plays, like, the Arab trader, and he's, like, way over the top, and he's constantly, like, he's almost shouting, like, the whole movie, but he's not, and he just kind of brings these characters to life. I think that's sort of his thing, but it's no less special in this movie. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely love his performance in this movie, and I feel like it's an element that you can really point to say that made the movie something special.
Absolutely. I agree with my co-counsel here. Watching it again, after a few years of hiatus, I really appreciated everybody's facial expressions, like reacting to an eagle swiping it. Oh, watching a Frenchman or an Indian woman bathe. Ooh, I really think the cast and the cinematographer took time to capture the eyes and the mouths and the facial expressions that needed to convey the scene at hand that I didn't appreciate in my younger years in the 90s. And so I really have to tip my hat to every frame, like, because you could still it, and it would be just hilarious seeing Chris Farley up at the Eagles' nest, like, it's like,
you know
that's
what?
fantastic.
Can I play off that a little bit?
Yes.
I would agree. I feel like this movie captures a lost art form in just, like, expressional humor.
Yeah.
Exactly, like from the silent film era.
Yeah, comedies nowadays I feel are unfortunately very, like, it's funny because a child is cursing, or it's funny because the teddy bear is getting a blowjob. You know, something nonsense like that.
Right.
Sure, yeah,
No,
we're
you're
all
right.
laughing. We're all laughing.
You're right. No, you're right.
But the point I'm trying to make here
You're right,
is that
Mark. No.
what makes this movie funny is you watching the characters react to the bullshit that the other characters are doing.
To the environment, or to the opposing, running through a field of corn.
And I think this is something that, like, you brought up, Tim, that, like, you know, with respect to, like, the directing and shit like that, is, like, I really think in this movie they said, keep doing it until I've got the fucking funny shot of your face reacting to, like, an eagle swooping down is gonna fucking, like, tear at your head, like, for the third time, like, that takes dedication, and it takes a special eye on the directing side to be like, okay, we've got this.
Yeah, the best part of this movie is that it knows how stupid it is.
Right.
And it just, you know,
it's a history goof. It's a history goof. Yes.
Like, yeah,
Absolutely.
sure. If you're gonna watch this with a really, just rigid mindset, you're gonna come away thinking this is dumb.
It's the
And
dimmest thing
it is
ever.
dumb, but it's watching the characters or the actors acknowledge how dumb it is. That's the humor.
Yeah.
That is the humor of this movie, is that it poking fun at itself.
I just need the shell. Oh. You just need the eagle shell. Oh.
Yeah, and I
Told me that.
yeah, and I gotta agree here that like if, like you said, if you're not a fan of Farley's other work, or a lot of his sort of like maybe mid '80s to like early 2000s, silly comedies like raunch comedies, maybe this isn't for you. But I feel like that type of movie serves such a wide palette that I think you'll enjoy this. If you enjoy anything even remotely like that. Score and soundtrack, I mean, I've got nothing other than like it was kind of clever in like their, banjo-y like 18th century fucking.
It fit the time period.
It did its
It
thing.
fit the time period. But Colin, you're not gonna praise the bagpipe scenes?
Okay. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I play the bagpipes, and I gotta admit, I do appreciate that they wrote bagpipes into this movie. And it was like one of the running gags in this movie was one of their crew played the bagpipes and only knew one tune.
Don't you know any goddamn tune?
So he keeps busting it out like over and over. It is
Nope.
it is a pretty funny gag.
Are you insinuating, Colin, that there are different bagpipe tunes?
So basically,
Besides a haggis being deflated of air.
so basically, the way it works with bagpipes is there's one very long tune, right?
Yeah.
It's like 46 minutes long,
Yeah.
and we just play different sections of that tune.
wow.
You know what?
Sometimes we'll jump around, and it'll seem like we're playing different songs, but we're not actually. We've learned one song.
The more you know.
Yeah. If you could see us right now, there's a star above our head that just sort of like came up and hovered there. I hope people are getting this reference.
There's just a deposit of haggis in my lap now.
Right, okay, so we transitioned into the Scottish effect that this had on Tim.
Yeah.
I gotta give this movie points for creativity, though. Like, it is not something that I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm just so biased because films nowadays seem like it's always a remake of something, or it's a reboot, or it's a this, or it's a that. It's a sequel, it's a prequel. This movie genuinely was its own thing. And it was bold enough to take this strategy of like, we're not only going to do our own thing, like we're going to make our own comedy that isn't based on anything, but we're going to make it a period comedy, which is...
It's just tough.
It is tough.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough enough to make a period piece when you have like a sort of like legitimate angle to approach people who are going to be funding this film and like, gathering resources and shit like that. But good God, like saying I basically need to collect props for an 18th century whatever period piece comedy. Like, it's going to be like a shtick version of Lewis and Clark. Like, good God. Like, I can't imagine how difficult this would have been to make, and I can't imagine how difficult it would be to make today.
Especially in the 90s. Yeah, late 90s. And what you were saying reminds me of how the success of the Comedy Central show, Another Period, is in that same vein, where they're just trying to hit the right tones, hit the right costumes, hit the right atmosphere, and just make it...
It's a high bar.
Yeah, make it applicable.
Yeah, sure.
Approachable, empathetic to modern audiences for our protagonists.
Palatable.
That's a great word.
Fuck it. I'm just going to... generalizable. I'm going to throw out every fucking word we have to sort of...
Let's get out.
Get in the neighborhood of what we're
Thesaurus
talking
Rex
about.
out here.
Thesaurus Rex.
Woof. Woof. That's what the, yeah.
That's what thesauruses say.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything we didn't like about this movie?
What did I not like? I guess a little bit of racial stereotypes, a little bit, but it's all it's tongue in cheek. So again, in a comedy, you can kind of skate that.
I feel like it was very aware of itself with that shit.
It's really not. I mean,
I also feel like
kind of just just stereotypical costumes, but again, not bad.
Yeah, no,
for the era.
There's a scene where full disclosure here, there is one African American actor in this whole movie, and he is playing a slave in this movie. And there is a scene where the characters are drawing lines in the sand of, whose allegiances fall with whom, and the character, says to Matthew Perry's, well, I'm your slave. As if
who do you think I'm with?
Yeah, of course I'm going to support you. That's the insinuation. And then all of a sudden he just says, yeah, I'm with Bob. Right. So, it knows. Mm-hmm. It knows.
Yeah.
It's very... I still think it's pretty woke for the day. For the day and age it was shot in. So.
Yeah, I feel like if you watch this movie and you get your knickers in a twist about that kind of shit, maybe you're looking a little bit too hard.
Yeah, you're digging for something.
I don't know. I found it funny.
Like with the first Ghostbusters movie, you're digging for something.
Yeah, sort of. I don't know.
There's nothing genuinely degrading about its portrayal of that subject, but, it was aware of it.
I think it pretty handedly poked fun at just about everybody.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, some version of this movie that I am not a huge fan of. It was pretty solid. I feel like they did what they could with what they had. There's some cheesy scenes where it's okay, as far as visual effects are concerned, maybe it wasn't top notch, but because of the nature of the film, it didn't detract from how if anything, it enhanced it. There's a scene where Chris Farley's fighting with an eagle, and the eagle takes off with him, and it's okay. So physics doesn't exist now.
Oh, yeah, you could definitely...
what he's
but
saying,
it's fucking funny.
There's a scene where an eagle is carrying a 300 plus pound man off a cliff. I will say, was there anything that we didn't like about this movie? There's a lot about this movie that if it were in a different movie, I would take issue with. There's a lot of criticisms that you could make of this movie, but I feel this specific movie is filling a niche where, hey, it's telling the audience, hey, we're dumb. This is a dumb movie, and you're gonna like it, and if you don't like it, don't watch this movie. I feel like if you decide to just watch a dumb movie, to just have a good time, there's nothing that pulls you out of that mode. There's nothing that... This movie's not trying to be taken seriously. So any kind of serious criticisms you have of it are kind of lost in the wash, because it's just... It knows what it is. It's not trying to be something that it's not.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think it's a 100% dumb movie, because they do actually reference legitimate history and legitimate terms of the times and legitimate maps of the era and paths. No, they really actually do kind of. They actually really do.
It is a little weird.
It's a little weird that how much the screenwriters went into this, just to make Matthew Perry and Chris Farley look somewhat sensible in their voyage to or trek to the Pacific.
I guess if there was a criticism I felt like the portrayal of the only female character was very one-dimensional. Her whole purpose was to be an object. I don't feel like she really brought anything to it.
No, that's fair.
That's really my only criticism, I think.
Yeah.
She didn't have any kind of character development. She didn't have any one-liners. She was a prop.
She was an object at the start, and then she was an object of desire, and then she was just there at the end.
Yeah, again, we're looking for a stupid movie, so I'm not trying to think too much on it, but she didn't add anything to it that any other random female actress could have been subbed in for.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I'll agree with you there. I do agree that she was one-dimensional. I don't think that was the actress's fault. I think that was the writing. I do think there were, like, sort of subtle hints that they sort of knew the character was like that, and they were kind of poking fun of it. You know, poking fun at, like, you know, this is sort of how movies about this type of shit, you know, would have been shot 50, 60 years ago. With, you know, sort of the helpless, you know, female character, like, basically, as you put it, like, you know, as an object for, like, the comedy to happen to. I think they were sort of aware of that, and they poked fun at it a little bit in the movie. But I definitely agree. Like, I think more could have been done with her character to sort of enhance the comedy from, like, an actual, again, multi-dimensional perspective. They could have developed her character a little bit more, and they could have had her sort of delivering some of this shtick, as opposed to basically, like, I think in many regards she sort of acted, as we discussed earlier, where Farley and Perry sort of took turns being the yardstick by which, like, stupid shit was held to make it funny. She was the one character in the film that was sort of, like, aware of everything that was happening, and she was, like, you know, all of the silly bullshit, like, her face was sort of, like, letting you know that it was silly, because she was like, what?
You know what? I could agree with that, because she, and like you said, I think she was the most aware. She, you could probably argue, was the most, by way of insinuation, the most intelligent character. You know,
yeah.
If there was anything that was happening, she knew the reason behind it, and you could tell by the way she delivered it. So, sure, yeah, she was both the, you know, most intelligent character, but also the most helpless.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And as you put it, one-dimensional. Like, she didn't deliver any lines. She didn't deliver any comedy. She didn't advance the plot at all. She was, you know, in many regards, sort of a prop, which I think, you know, your critique is, I think, valid in that perspective. Like, her character, well, maybe necessary, like, could have been enhanced a lot.
All right, what else we got?
So, anything else that you guys were not crazy about in the movie? I thought the movie was pretty well rounded overall.
Yeah, I think that, and this is getting a little beyond this movie, but every movie has a purpose, and the purpose of this movie is to just turn your brain off and have a good time watching people being stupid.
Yeah.
And it fit that mold perfectly.
It's a Farley film.
Yeah, watch a silly historical farce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so how would we rate this film?
Let's see. Almost Heroes. I give it 7 out of 10 cracked eagle eggs.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. I'm with you.
Oh man, how do you rate this movie? If we're talking just purely enjoyment, I'm gonna say a 7.3 and a half.
Whoa.
Farley's. You know, this is not the actor Farley. This is a different unit of measurement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Farley.
Not a Farley 451.
Correct.
Yeah.
Not a Farley 451. It's an Easter egg for our last podcast.
Farley's to maps is pretty, like, that's a pretty even conversion, isn't it?
Sort of. It's not quite Celsius Fahrenheit, but you know what? Continue.
So I was going to give this 7.1 out of 10 maps, but I'm thinking I actually might give it a 7.2 canoes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, and I think
Now those are actually the interesting thing about canoes is they're actually worth more going upriver than downriver. So
that's true.
I'm not going to specify which direction these canoes are traveling, but I'll give it a 7.2 canoes.
And they float.
Everything floats down here, Mark. In the basement. 3 men's in the basement.
Very interested to see how that was picked up. Any closing thoughts on this movie before we wrap things up?
Yeah, see it if you haven't completed your Chris Farley catalog. Definitely pick it up. He'll be there for you.
Yeah, it's a dumb movie, okay? It is a dumb movie. Let me get that out. It's stupid. But I had a good time watching it. Just go into it looking to just relax. I said it was a good time, no alcohol required, but just have a beer when you watch it. It'll make it better.
Beer never hurts.
Yeah, no, I recommend it. You know, I mean, my closing argument, if you're just looking to tune out, if you've had a stressful day, if you've got a lot going on and you just want to chuckle at other people being dumb, do it.
Or listen to this podcast. Those are your 2 options. Watch this movie, listen to the podcast.
At both. The same time.
I gotta agree with both of you. I agree that if you haven't seen it at all and you're not, you're just in the mood for a comedy, good movie to watch. Tim, I appreciate you bringing up that this is the kind of movie that, like, if you're a Farley fan or even a Perry fan, which I think are, they're fewer and farther between, not in that he doesn't deserve it, but he's got less of the sort of, like, clout, big box name type stuff. Pick up this movie because it's something that may have missed you. I really dig this movie, and I hope you will too. That being said, we are 3 Men in a Basement until next week, and I'm Colin McLeod.
I'm Timothy Magic.
This is Mark Culpier.
And we'll see you in cyberspace.
Deuces.
Peace.